Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I have some news. The other day, I realized I had grown into the thing that I swore as a kid that I'd never grow into. I turned into an adult that says to his children the most hated 4 words you can say to a kid. The 4 words that I loathed as a child, that when my mom would say to me, I would become enraged at. But now these 4 words have found a sweetness on my tongue. They roll off without any hesitation. These 4 words are, because I said so. When I was a kid, and I'd ask my mom for something, and when she would inevitably say no, probably because the thing I asked for was admittedly kind of dumb, or unnecessary, when she would say, because I said so, I felt that as a kid, I deserved some sort of explanation as to why the answer was no. I thought I deserved some rationale, some meaning to the choice my mother made. So after she would say no, I'd follow up with why? And she'd reply, because I said so, and I would get so mad. I was thoroughly offended as a 7-year-old when she didn't take the time to coherently explain to me her decision. And you know what? I remember, this was in the 90s, I remember seeing something on TV, probably like on Oprah or some show, some talk show. There was a segment called The Dangers of Because I Said So. And I saw that on television. I brought her into the living room and I pointed at the screen. I said, look, Ma, this is dangerous. Oprah says so. That did not change her behavior or rhetoric at all. She just kept going with it. But it made me incensed. Anytime she would give me that line, I would get so angry. Well, guess what, friends? Now that I'm a parent, I use that line like 58 times a day. I say, because I said so, all the time. In fact, I said it twice at dinner before I drove here to services, because I said so. And you want to know why I say it? Because if I'm being honest, the stuff my kids ask for is not particularly important or particularly relevant. They're 9 and 5 and 3. Would you believe the stuff they ask for isn't super important when I'm in the busy something? And I've found that their requests usually fall into 2 categories. A is stuff that they don't need at that moment or really at all. And the second category is things that will hurt them. These are the only 2 things that my kids want. Useless kind of tchotchke stuff and activities that will put them into the emergency room. I say no to both of those things. I didn't used to be this way. We used to just have one kid, and I would attempt to patiently explain to him why he shouldn't do things like jump out of the tree in the backyard onto the trampoline. He asked me if he could do that, and I used to crouch down, and I would say, you know, you could get really hurt, and Mommy and Daddy don't want... But then we kept having kids, and now there's 3 boys, and they just constantly want to hurt themselves. Our house is like WrestleMania or a circus. It always looks like a grenade went off in there. And my 5-year-old asked, this is a true story, a 5-year-old asked me the other day, he said, Dad, can I throw a rock at Zeke? That's his 3-year-old brother. Can I throw a rock at Zeke? And I said, no. And he said, why? And I said, because I said so. Now, what I was really thinking was, no, you can't. And there's no time to explain why you can't. Because you should inherently know that throwing rocks at people is just not a good idea. Nothing positive can come from it. I shouldn't have to give you a chart or a diagram or a legal response as to why you shouldn't throw a hard object at your brother's face. He's 3. I pay for this house. I pay my taxes. I pay for all of your insurance. I just worked all day. I don't want you to go to the ER and take your brother there and sit with all the weirdos in the waiting room because you decided to throw a rock at his face. Just because Bluey wasn't on TV at the time, I could have said all of that, but it's much easier just to say, because I said so. Now, believe it or not, in our Torah portion for this week, Vayera, God totally could have taken advantage of his authority as God and given Abraham the "because I said so" line. But that's not what God does in our Parsha. In Parshat Vayera, something different happens. Allow me to give you the play-by-play leading up to this "because I said so" moment. Abraham is sitting in his tent. 3 angels come to visit him. He greets them, he washes their feet, feeds them. Then one of the angels tells Sarah that she's going to give birth to a baby at age 90. Mazel tov to Sarah. She scoffs at this idea. Anyway, the angels leave the scene, and then something interesting happens. God questions whether or not to tell Abraham that he is going to destroy the city of Sodom. This is what the Torah tells us. And we get a very, very interesting series of verses. This is what it says, quote, "When the men," the angels, "got up to leave, they looked towards Sodom, and Abraham walked along with them to see them on their way. Then Adonai," God said, "shall I hide from Abraham what I'm about to do?" This is God thinking. "Abraham will surely become a great and powerful nation. All the nations on earth will be blessed through him, for I have chosen him so that he will direct his children and his household after him to keep the way of the Lord of Adonai from doing what is right and just, so that the Lord will bring about for Abraham what he has promised him." Now, after this, God does tell Abraham that he's going to destroy the city, and Abraham and God have a debate about it. They have a discussion. Abraham actually tries to talk him out of it. And you know what, friends? This is how you communicate with someone that you're in partnership with. Allow me to tell you who I do not use the "because I said so" line with: my lovely wife. The reason I don't use that line is because I don't want to be clocked over the head with it. No, the real reason I don't use that line is because I'm in partnership with her. When I stood under the chuppah with her, I pledged to make decisions with her, to talk with her, to think with her, to navigate life with her. The decisions that I make as her husband require her input. That's what marriage is. It's a covenant, a brit, between 2 people that they won't use the line "because I said so." It's a radically different relationship than the relationship of a parent and a child. God talks to Abraham. God reveals his plan to him because he says, with this man, I'm going to make a covenant, a promise. Through this man, my beloved Jewish people are going to be born. It's a partnership that he makes with human beings. And when you're in partnership with someone, when you love someone, you pledge to talk things out with them. Even if you ultimately disagree, you never shut them down with the "because I said so" line. But friends, it's important not to reciprocate this line back to God. God wants us to be in relationship with him. So when you feel God asking you, "Why haven't you prayed to me? Why haven't you helped others? Why haven't we connected?" It's important not to shut that down with "because I said so." Maybe it's a sign to connect with the divine. Friends, as we celebrate Shabbat together, we celebrate this wonderful bar mitzvah family together, I want you all to think about all of the blessings that God has given you. Maybe it's your family or your friends or even your health. Whatever it is, think of that as a reason to tell God, not "because I said so," but "because I love you." Shabbat Shalom.